The primary attribute of supernatural thinking is that there are magical entities or forces which control the fate of humanity. On the contrary, most naturalists argue that humans are actually just one sort of animal, very much a part of the natural world. This then means that our behaviors are determined by some combination of our genetic makeup and the environment from birth to death, and how that environment acts on those genes. Do you think such a naturalism leaves open the possibility of free will, which seems to contradict our notion of cause and effect universe?
No, it doesn't contradict anything. It just says that we don't know whether the phenomenon that we all experience, it's our most immediate experience, the phenomenon of freedom of will is a real aspect of the universe that we simply don't comprehend yet, or maybe ever, or whether it's an illusion that can be explained in some other fashion. That question just remains open. There's plenty of things we don't understand. For example, we don't really have an intuitive grasp of something which now naturalists take for granted, namely that if I move my hand, I'm moving the moon. That there can be interaction at a distance. When Newton proposed that, he regarded it as a total absurdity. That's why he said, no person of sound scientific understanding can imagine to be true for a moment. In fact, he spent the rest of his life trying to find some way to get around it, as did leading scientists not only of his day, but for centuries afterwards. It finally became scientific common sense. Well, there are things about the world we just can't comprehend. And we don't know how far. If we are just part of the animal world, as I believe, and I think you believe, then our cognitive capacities are going to be like all our other capacities. They'll have a certain scope, and they'll have certain limits. That's the nature of a biological organism.
So you're suggesting that until we know more about the workings of the human mind, or that neuroscience is starting to show us, we can't definitively come down one way or another on the free will question. It's more of a matter of intuition and still in the realm of philosophy?
Bertrand Russell pointed out back in the 1920s, and I think correctly, that there are several grades of confidence that we have, or we should have, in our belief system. The highest confidence is in our immediate experience. Mm-hmm. The second level of confidence, he said, is in the reports of immediate experience by others who are like us. And the third level, lowest level of confidence, would be in the scientific constructions that we develop to try to make some sense out of our experience. Well, our most immediate experience, I can't think of anything more immediate and less questionable, is that I could decide right now to, say, hang up the phone or start talking about, the Boston Red Sox or 1,000 other things, but I'm not going to do it because it wouldn't be appropriate. Our most immediate experience is that we act in ways which are somehow appropriate to situations, which is quite different than saying they're caused by them. Now, maybe there is some way of accounting for our choices in terms of the circumstances in which we're placed and something internal to us. But, that's a thesis.
It's certainly counterintuitive, and I think philosophers who discuss, who call themselves determinists, like your friend of mine, Ted Hondrick, would argue that it is counterintuitive, and it might be easier to dismiss what they call counter-causal free will than to affirm pure determinism. But it is a very complex question.
I don't even believe that it's a complex question. Mm-hmm. I think it's something that we simply do not know. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things we don't know. One of them is whether the immediate experience of freedom of will is an illusion, or whether it is in fact an aspect of the universe that we have not yet come to comprehend, and that our cognitive capacities may not allow us to comprehend. Just as our cognitive capacities, if we are serious about it, are like Newton's. They do not allow us to comprehend the fact that action without contact is possible. We accept it, and we understand theories about it, but there's a big difference between intelligibility of theories and intelligibility of the world. In fact, what happened in the Newtonian revolution, took a long time for it to sink in, was that the aspirations of science were lowered. In the early modern scientific revolution, say Galileo up through Newton and beyond, the assumption was, guiding idea was, that the world is a kind of a complicated machine, sort of like a clock, the fancy clocks that artisans
Right.
built, just a lot more complicated, and we can understand it. And our goal is to try to gain the understanding of how this machine works. Well, when Newton came along, he was accused of reviving occult forces, things that a machine can't have, like action at a distance. And he more or less accepted that. And, he's not a fool, Newton, nor were the other great scientists of the day. And in fact, if you look at what really happened over time, the aspirations were lowered. The goals of science were lowered from intelligibility of the world, which we kind of give up, to intelligibility of theoretical explanations of the world, which we hold and try to pursue.
Well, the reason why I'm asking this question at all, because I think it might be important due to the understanding it might offer us in how we treat one another, especially with regard to, say, the criminal justice system. For instance, if we understand that we're not ultimately responsible for our actions, as determinists say, we might want to alter our rather punitive methodology regarding punishment and reward, and refocus our efforts on creating a healthier environment from the get-go.
I agree with your goal. What you're describing, but I think that's totally independent of what speculations we have about the nature of freedom of the will. We do it anyway. In our ordinary lives and in human affairs, we simply take for granted that people have freedom of will just as we see in ourselves, and that they therefore have moral responsibilities. How we proceed to deal with the questions that arise, that's a matter of the level of humanity and of civilization that we've achieved.